Good evening to you and all the viewers. First, of course, evacuating Rafah of all the populations is tampering with the demographic distribution of population in Gaza, targeting the taking control over the enclave and making Rafah an isolated area is the desire of Israel, which will prevent the free use of the Rafah crossing, and also the borders with Egypt, between Egypt and Palestine. Israel will be the only one controlling the strip, and also the only corridor out of the strip, and to communicate with the rest of the world. And therefore the siege imposed on Rafah today and turning Rafah into an isolated area will also facilitate the Israeli scheme to evacuate the strip as the only controller of the last outlet to the strip to the entire world through Egypt. This will not only reflect on the demographic distribution of the population or achieving the Israeli scheme, it will also cut the main line of support of food to the Gaza Strip. And I'm not only talking about the food supplies through the Rafah crossing, but also the agricultural lands and plots for the Gaza Strip, as the large portion of the Rafah lands is the food reserve for the Gaza population, giving them the essential food supplies.
Adding to this, with the Israeli occupation forces destroying the water and electricity infrastructure within Gaza, if you can expand on the significance of this humanitarian crisis and what are the immediate health risks to the population?
We're talking about 1.5 Gazans suffering from diseases related directly to the lack of water or the contaminated water in the Gaza Strip. We're talking about diseases related to bowels, and there are a lot of health reflections. We're talking today, access to clean water is is impossible inside the strip, especially with the targeted water stations and water treatment plants, as water is now mixed with the contaminated water. We're talking about a complete health catastrophe due to the spread of the diseases due to the lack of water or the use of contaminated water. We're talking about thirst as a collective punishment tool. Gaza, each individual only gets to have a liter of water a day in the Gaza Strip, as the a normal human needs 2 to 3 liters a day only for drinking, not to mention the need to clean or wash up. It is, of course, a hygiene catastrophe, facilitating transmitted and communicable diseases to spread. Of course, water is an essential component for life, as stated in the Holy Quran. Of course, without water, there will be no human living or even plant living, which is threatening the biological circle or the ecological circle, in the strip.
Now, taking all of this into account and given the large-scale evacuations of civilians you've mentioned, what are the main challenges faced by international organizations in delivering aid to the region, especially since the flow of aid has been halted since mid-March?
We're talking about a 40-day of a complete halt of assistance, which is the longest period witnessed by the Gaza Strip without any type of humanitarian aid access. We're talking about 65% of the Gaza Strip classified as red zones, meaning as dangerous zones for workers to operate, and there are 18% of the lands require coordination, operation coordination. All humanitarian relief workers, those that provide food meals, are working under a lot of hazards without any real coordination. The potential to reach populations is very difficult due to the constant evacuation of a number of families. So classifying these families is now very difficult. Even families remaining in the same area for a long period now difficult due to the constant bombing everywhere. We're talking about two main hurdles. One is the constant displacement and the inability to stay in one place for a long period of time, and the second hurdle is related to the relief aid to the relief workers. They are being constantly targeted by the IDF, and they also targeting now social kitchens and the relief workers in different fields, and food storages are being targeted over and over by the IDF. And talking about these substantial obstacles that completely hinder the access of humanitarian aid. Each time a relief worker moves out of their house uh, to their work, they are targeted.
Ms. Ratiba, how do you interpret the statements from the Antalya Diplomacy Forum that called for the unification of Gaza with the West Bank under the Palestinian Authority?
Egypt is playing an integral role running the negotiations and pushing for the day next to the war for the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip. It is leading the Arab and Islamic efforts through the reconstruction initiative, which is adopted on the Islamic and Arab levels, especially after the Macron visit to Cairo and holding talks regarding the items of this agenda. These are now realistic proposals for the day next to war, which is encouraging the US administration to provide more guarantees to pressure Israel into negotiations of the second phase of the ceasefire in a few days, and Israel won't place more obstacles. These efforts cannot be overlooked, and we are aware that we are on a top priority for Egypt.
Speaking of the U.S. administration, Trump has said that progress is being made to reach a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. I have to ask you, are we getting closer to reaching a ceasefire agreement in Gaza from your point of view?
If we're not surprised by Israel, as always, by efforts to fail these efforts, we are aware that Trump gave Netanyahu a time frame to halt the hostilities, and he requested Netanyahu and he said that the United States will take over the negotiation efforts. And even regarding the end of the war on the Gaza Strip. So I think that the U.S. Interests in the Middle East and the Trump desire to have some kind of stability so that he can operate his economic investments is highly important for the United States, and it is the main incentive for the U.S. to pressure Israel to commit to the second phase negotiations. But we have always this fear that the Israeli side might have some surprises to fail the Egyptian or the U.S. efforts to reach an agreement.